What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 15 top 20 tight end rankings. Already posted the quarterbacks earlier today. Defenses will be coming out later. Flex rankings either tonight or tomorrow morning. If you guys enjoyed the video, do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe. But let's dive right into Tier 1. Kind of a pedestrian Week 14 out of this Tier 1 guy, but he's not moving. It is Trey McBride, still in the tier by himself. Not a good matchup against the Texans. I just don't really think it matters. He is the clear-cut tight end one in points per game. He's averaging 18.1 PPR points per game. He's been so consistent. He's had these super high ceiling games. Trey McBride, locked in tight end one. Moving into tier 2, just a couple of guys, Brock Bowers, George Kittle. For Brock Bowers, he's going up against the Eagles. Not a good matchup. This Raiders offense continues to struggle, but Brock Bowers is still producing. Last 2 games, 4 for 63 and 2 touchdowns, 4 for 46 and a touchdown. You'd like to see more consistent volume. Like, outside of Bowers, there's really no one else they should be prioritizing getting the ball to in terms of pass catchers. Obviously, you have Genty, but like the wide receiver room is brutal. They should just be force-feeding Brock Bowers. Hopefully we see that this week against the Eagles, but either way, he's too talented to sit because even if you target him 4 times like we saw in Week 13, he'll turn that into 63 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then George Kittle going up against the Titans. He kind of had a slower start coming off of injured reserve, but last 4 games, 18.2 points per game, locked in high-end tight end 1 rest of season. Now kicking off tier 3, I have Harold Fannin going up against the Bears. This was awesome to see out of Fannin. I really liked him as a prospect, one of my most drafted dynasty rookie players this year. And he had been solid throughout the season, but a monster breakout Week 14, 11 targets, 8 receptions for 114 yards and a touchdown. And this is more, I guess, of a long-term thing. But I do think there were question marks about Harold Fannin. He's not like your prototypical tight end that you want playing in line and is it going to be a dominant blocker? And so if there's a new coaching staff next year, it's possible he could have seen his role kind of reduced. But if he continues to put up numbers like this, he's going to be locked onto the field regardless of who his coach is next season. At tight end 5, I have Travis Kelce going up against the Chargers. He had been a very consistent option, and then everything just fell apart in Week 14. 5 targets, 1 reception for 8 yards. He had a couple of tough drops where they weren't good throws, but Travis Kelce should be bringing those in. One of them led to an interception. I'm not going to bury him in the rankings. In all honesty, the top tier of the tight end position isn't feeling great late in the season, so he's still going to be a top 5 play for me. At tight end 6, I have Kyle Pitts going up against the Buccaneers. In back-to-back games without London, Pitts has logged 2 really solid performances, 7 for 82, then 6 for 90 this past week. Buccaneers also really struggle against tight ends, 2nd in points per game allowed. And then Drake London, I'm not expecting him to return this week. He's not practicing. I just don't see why they force it. Obviously, the Falcons are not playing for anything this season. Continuing on with tier 3, Dalton Kincaid going up against the Patriots. We saw him return in Week 14, 5 targets, 4 receptions for 41 yards, in a really nice matchup against the Bengals. I just think he's probably the Bills' number 1 pass catcher at this point. Khalil Shakir has been super inconsistent, and even though Kincaid isn't a full-time player, he still has a pretty high weekly ceiling. Tight end 8, Brenton Strange going up against the Jets. Week 14, pedestrian performance, 3 receptions for 27 yards, but he had put up at least 10 plus PPR points in his previous 4 healthy games. The Jaguars are tied for 4th in terms of their implied point total. So I think this offense is going to have some success. Brenton Strange, definitely a key piece of that passing game. And then the last guy in tier 3, Jake Ferguson. He's actually been a pretty steady, higher floor, lower ceiling option as of late. From weeks 9 through 14, he has scored between 8 and 12 PPR points. I still think he's someone who comes with a lot of touchdown upside just playing on this Cowboys offense. Now moving into tier 4, I'm going to start it off with the Mark Andrews going up against the Bengals. This, I guess, the veteran tight end tier. But for Mark Andrews, this is the great matchup, right? Bengals, 1st in points per game allowed to the tight end position, and it is not even close. By 7 full PPR points per game, the Bengals are giving up more than every other defense. Andrews has not been great as of late. He's actually had 1 reception for 9 yards in 2 of his last 3 games, but he's kind of at this point in his career turned into a very boomer bust option. He'll have these like super low volume games where he doesn't produce, and then all of a sudden he'll have like a breakout performance where he gets into the end zone multiple times. If I'm going to bank on a Mark Andrews breakout, it would be this matchup here going up against the Bengals. And if you don't have like one of these super established options at tight end, and you do have Mark Andrews just sitting on your roster, like this is the spot where you play him, right? When he does get that cake matchup against the Bengals. After Andrews, I've got Hunter Henry going up against the Bills. He had kind of a rough middle of the season, really starting to put it together over the last few weeks. In his last 3 games, he's gone 4 for 45, 7 for 115 and a touchdown, and then 4 for 73 in week 13 prior to the Patriots bye. And then the final tight end in this tier, Juwan Johnson, going up against the Panthers. Last 7 games, super consistent, 11.7 PPR points per game. He has hit 7 PPR points in all 7 of those matchups. Now, moving into tier 5, I've got Dallas Goedert going up against the Raiders. He had kind of been struggling as of late, but goes out week 14, 10 targets, 8 receptions for 78 yards. He's not super consistent. He doesn't have a super high weekly floor, but he does have these potential games mixed in there. Then I've got the 2 rookie tight ends, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland. For Tyler Warren, I mean, this is definitely like a big drop off from where he's been ranked previously. And it just all comes down to the quarterback situation. This offense, like you go from like one of the best offenses in the league with Daniel Jones to now Jones is out. Richardson was already hurt. Now Riley Leonard is injured, and we're probably getting Phillip Rivers coming out of retirement to play quarterback for this team. Like, I just think this could be a really brutal offense. He's already coming off a rough week 14, 2 receptions for 15 yards. I think they're really going to try to run the ball. I don't really see this offense having much success anywhere, so it's tough for me to rank Tyler Warren much higher than this, especially like it's not a bad offense with limited weapons. It is an offense that has a lot of capable weapons with Pittman, Pierce, JT, Tyler Warren. There's a lot of mouths to feed, and I just don't think there's going to be a ton of super fruitful opportunities out there. And then with the other rookie, Colston Loveland, he continues to be solid. I think he is a very good NFL tight end. The routes still just aren't amazing, but he's coming off week 14, 4 receptions for 29 yards and a touchdown. He's just not giving you anything crazy. He had that one huge boom game against the Bengals. You're just kind of playing a talented player and hoping he can find his way into the end zone. After Loveland, I've got Theo Johnson going up against the Commanders. He scored 10 PPR points in 6 of his last 10 games. Giants projected to do fairly well in this matchup, tied for 10th in terms of their implied point total. And then the Commanders are giving up the 5th most points per game to tight ends. Dalton Schultz up next, going up against the Cardinals. He had a really nice run, kind of ended 3 weeks ago. He scored under 6 PPR points in 2 of his last 3 games. But prior to that, he had scored at least 8 points in 7 of his last 8. So we'll see if he can right the ship here. I do think this is a matchup against the Cardinals where the Texans will have a lot of success offensively. And then the last guy in this tier, Isaiah Likely, going up against the Bengals. Didn't do a ton coming off of his injury, but last couple of games started to lock in. 5 for 95, then 4 for 25 and a touchdown. Just like I talked about with Mark Andrews, this is like, the nuts matchup here going up against the Bengals. The reason why I'm, a decent bit lower on Isaiah Likely is just in terms of the routes. Like, Mark Andrews just has way more involvement in this offense. Isaiah Likely in week 14, only a 52% route share. That is not ideal, but if you're desperate at tight end with the matchup, I do think Isaiah Likely could be playable. Now, kicking off tier 6, I have a tight end in that same matchup with Mike Gesicki. Coming off a big week 14, 6 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown. The issue, though, is just like the routes aren't there. This is a really heavy split at tight end. Actually only had a 45% route rate. So we know he's a talented pass catcher. Could be a shootout here against the Ravens. T. Higgins potentially missing time. But still, just when a tight end's not even running routes on half the dropbacks, the weekly floor is just so low. And even the ceiling is somewhat capped on that type of usage. And then the final tight end, I debated between a few different names, strongly considered Darren Waller here, but the targets just haven't really been there. I went with Oronde Gadsden, and I've already been thinking about like some of the videos I'm going to be doing like going into the off season, and from like a dynasty perspective, I think a lot of these Chargers weapons are really strong buy lows, specifically like Quentin Johnston and Aronde Gadsden, because we've seen is like the offensive line has just like completely deteriorated. These pass catchers have really suffered, especially Gadsden, right? Who's not going to be your prototypical blocking tight end. His usage has kind of fallen off a little bit, only 71% route participation last week, where he had been rising to like 80 plus when he was putting up some of his big games. QJ just doesn't have the time to win down the field. And then Gadsden had really been building under 7 PPR points in his last 4 games. This offensive line is truly abysmal. I mean, Justin Herbert is fighting for his life back there, and it's not an easy matchup against this Chiefs defense. So I opted to just go for a tight end who I think is talented, playing with a good quarterback, but I certainly wouldn't feel super confident playing Gadsden, which is unfortunate because like 5, 6 weeks ago, you were thinking this dude could be like a league winning option at the tight end position. But that is going to wrap it up for my top 20. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.